The legends were nothing more than drunken stories told by old soldiers at dying bars. At least that's what I believed. Every academy instructor called them myths. Tales of fleets that had vanished into the abyss centuries ago, ships that never returned, crews who had supposedly faced something beyond human comprehension. I used to laugh at the idea until the day I saw them with my own eyes. I was stationed on the orbital watchtower over New Carthage, a city world that never slept. Billions of lights burned below us while the void above remained silent, black, and endless. My shift was routine, dull, the kind of work that makes you forget you were ever trained for war. Scan sectors, log cargo ships, sip bitter coffee, and pretend the universe isn't slowly choking humanity to death. That night something changed. The alarms didn't sound the way they normally did. They were deeper, slower, like a bell tolling for the dead. My console glitched, white static flooding the hollow screen before reforming into symbols I didn't recognize. Coordinates: Sector Delta Black 17, a dead zone. No ships ever passed through there. No one was allowed to. At first I thought it was a malfunction. Then the long-range scanners lit up like a graveyard set on fire. Over 100 signatures, not merchant ships, not civilian transports, but heavy war vessels, their engines burning cold. They moved in perfect formation, silent, like predators gliding through the dark. I felt my chest tighten. The system cross-checked the signals, but the database gave nothing. No registration, no transponders, just blank IDs, as if these ships didn't exist. I leaned closer, my hands trembling, and that's when I saw it. Outlines of hulls that didn't match any current design. They were older, bulkier, scarred by centuries of wear. Hulls I had only seen in old paintings, hanging in the academy halls. The same fleet everyone said was lost. The same fleet people whispered about in half-forgotten war stories. The Legion of Iron. I remember swallowing hard, unable to breathe. The stories said they vanished 200 years ago, chasing an enemy no one had ever named. Some claimed they were destroyed. Others swore they deserted, choosing the dark instead of a war humanity couldn't win. No one believed them. Why would they? Legends were convenient lies, nothing more. But they were here. The fleet slowed near orbit there, blackened holes catching faint light from New Carthage's twin suns. They looked like corpses drifting in space. Except corpses don't move with purpose. I saw the scars etched into their metal skin, blast marks, plasma burns, alien etchings that didn't belong to any weapon I knew. Whatever they had faced, it had left its mark, and still they had survived. The comm channels erupted, panic from command, orders overlapping, voices breaking. Dozens of officers demanded answers I couldn't give. All I could do was stare at the screen while the shadows of the fleet eclipsed the stars. Then one of them spoke. The transmission crackled, ancient code breaking through every barrier like a knife through paper. It wasn't the polished voice of our era's commanders. It was harsh, cracked, the voice of someone who had seen centuries of war and carried every ghost with him. This is Fleet Commander Ren Varric of the Legion of Iron, the man said. His voice was steady, unshaken, as though he had rehearsed these words for a lifetime. We have returned from the dark. The control room went silent. I could hear my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. Varric continued, we come bearing Warnings, the enemy we faced is not gone, they are following. Prepare your world, and then the transmission ended, cutting into static. That hissed like a dying fire. For a long moment, none of us moved. My superior officer barked orders to scramble the planetary fleet, but it was pointless. Every man and woman on that station knew what we had just witnessed. The legends weren't myths. The Legion had returned. And if they were back, then so was whatever they had fought in the abyss. I didn't realize my hands were shaking until I looked down at them. Part of me wanted to believe this was salvation, that humanity's lost heroes had come back to defend us, but something in their tone, something in those scarred ships told me otherwise. They hadn't come back as saviors, they had come back as survivors, and survivors always bring death in their wake. The transmission ended, and for a moment the control room felt like a tomb. The only sound was the hiss of static fading from the speakers, as if the void itself was mocking us. I sat frozen at my console, eyes glued to the ghostly after image of the fleet on the scanner. I could still hear his voice, Commander Ren Varric, name I'd only seen carved into marble memorials, a man who by every historical record had been dead for 2 centuries. My commanding officer snapped me back to reality. Lieutenant, focus, get me full telemetry, every detail. His voice was sharp, but I caught the quiver beneath it. He was as shaken as the rest of us. I tried to obey, fingers tapping across the console, but my hands wouldn't steady. The data kept spitting out numbers that made no sense. Their holes were older than anything in service, their power signatures foreign, twisted, almost infected. Whatever had touched those ships had left a stain we couldn't classify. They're not answering hails, another officer muttered, voice tight with dread. They already answered, I said quietly, not realizing I'd spoken aloud. Heads turned toward me. My superior glared, but his anger felt hollow. We had all heard it. We have returned from the dark. Within minutes, the orbital network lit up with chatter. The planetary fleet was scrambling, forming a defensive wall around New Carthage. The Senate broadcasted emergency protocols, demanding the Legion submit to full inspection and control. But the Legion didn't move. They held orbit, silent and patient, as if waiting for us to decide whether to welcome them or fire upon them. I couldn't tear my eyes from the scanner. The fleet was enormous, 200 ships at least, though many looked half dead, their hulls fractured, entire sections rebuilt with patchwork metal that didn't look human. Some bristled with weaponry I didn't recognize. Others drifted with scars too deep to repair, yet somehow impossibly they still flew. Then came the first crack in the facade. A civilian broadcast leaked through the security filters. Someone on the planet had seen the fleet and sent a live feed across the net. Billions of citizens stared up at the night sky and saw those blackened warships hanging above them. Like vultures, the panic spread faster than fire in dry fields, streets clogged with riots, people screaming that the end had come, others crying out that salvation had arrived. Religion flared. Overnight, churches, cults, old myth sects, all claiming the return of the Legion was prophecy fulfilled. And me, I felt only dread. Command ordered a delegation to board the flagship of the Legion. Somehow, by a mix of bad luck and rank insignificance, I was chosen to accompany them. Maybe They wanted young blood with fresh eyes. Maybe they wanted someone expendable. Either way I was going, we left in a small diplomatic shuttle, 6 officers. In total, no escort. The Senate wanted to show trust, though every man on that shuttle carried a weapon hidden beneath his uniform. As we approached the flagship, I felt my throat tighten. Ship loomed like a god's corpse, vast and scarred. Its hull was pitted with craters, jagged welds, and strain carvings that pulsed faintly as if alive. I caught myself holding my breath as we slipped through the hangar field. The inside was worse. The hangar was dark, lit only by cold blue strips running along the walls. Ships sat in neat rows, but none of them looked entirely human anymore. Their curves were wrong, their angles sharper, as though something alien had fused itself into their bones. The air itself felt heavy, thick with an odor like burnt iron and old blood. Squad of soldiers awaited us. At least I think they were soldiers. Their armor was ancient, dented and scorched, but grafted with strange plating that shimmered faintly under the light. Their faces were hard, pale, their eyes sunken and sharp. They looked at us not as allies, not even as enemies, but as strangers trespassing into a home we had no right to enter. One of them stepped forward. His hair was silver, though his face looked no older than mine. He saluted with a fist to his chest, gesture from a military tradition long extinct. Commander Varric awaits. His voice was steady, but I heard the strain. These men weren't whole. They were stitched together by duty and willpower alone. We followed him through corridors that whispered with echoes. The walls were patched with metal, not from any human forge. The lights flickered with a sickly pulse, more like veins than wires. At one point we passed a section sealed behind thick glass. Inside, the wall was crawling with black growths that pulsed faintly as though breathing. One of our officers muttered a curse. The soldier escorting us gave no explanation. Finally, we reached the command chamber. He was there. Commander Ren Varric. He rose as we entered, tall, broad-shouldered, his uniform ragged yet regal. His eyes were cold steel, piercing, but what struck me most was the weight in them, the kind of gaze only a man who had buried worlds could carry. "Welcome," he said simply. His voice was the same as the transmission, a voice carved from stone, unshaken by time. The delegation leader, a senator's aide named Heron, forced a diplomatic smile. "Commander Varric, on behalf of the Senate, we welcome your return." Varric studied him for a long, uncomfortable moment before nodding. "You do not welcome us, you fear us. That is wise." Heron shifted uncomfortably, but pressed on. "Humanity believed the Legion destroyed, lost, and now you come with warnings of an enemy that follows. Who are they? What threat do they pose?" Varric's eyes darkened. He gestured to a console, and the walls lit with projections. Images burned into my mind the moment I saw them. Not ships, not armies, shapes, beings of darkness and light, their forms shifting like smoke and fire. They tore through fleets with claws of energy, devoured soldiers screaming into the void, worlds burning, skies filled with ash, oceans boiling as if the planet itself rejected life. "They are not an enemy you can name," Varric said. His voice was low, heavy. "They are not conquerors. They do not want your land, your wealth, or your obedience. They want only your end. We called them the Hollow because that is what they leave behind. One of our officers scoffed nervously. Stories, monsters to scare children. Varick's gaze cut to him like a blade. Do you think we carved these scars into our own flesh for amusement, do you? Think we grafted alien steel to our ships because we desired corruption? We bled, we screamed, we died, and still we returned, not to be believed, not to be welcomed, but because they are coming. Silence fell. Even Heron had no words. Varick continued softer now, almost weary. We fought them beyond the edge of stars. We survived only by becoming less than human, bending ourselves to weapons we swore never to use. We are not here as saviors, we are here as a wall. The last wall. If it falls, your world falls with it. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. His words carried no bravado, no exaggeration. Only truth, terrible, crushing truth. Aaron tried to regain footing. The Senate will require full access to your data, your weapons, your ships. Varick cut him off with a single look. Senate has grown soft. I see it in your eyes. You think politics can stop what is coming, but the Hollow will not bargain. They will not wait for your votes. When they arrive, you will beg for the same corruption we endured, just for the chance to live another day. Heron's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but his words died. I, however, couldn't stay silent. My voice cracked as I spoke. Why now, after all this time? Why return only when they follow? Why not before? Varick's eyes met mine. For the first time, his face softened just slightly. Because, Lieutenant, before now there was no hope, only survival. But the dark taught us something. The Hollow can bleed, and if they can bleed, they can die. But to kill them, humanity must become more than it has ever been. The chamber fell quiet again. None of us had an answer. And then far above the alarms wailed. The ship shuddered, lights flickering. One of Varick's officers burst in, face pale. Commander, they found us. Varick's gaze hardened. He turned to us, his voice like thunder. It begins. The deck trembled beneath my boots. The sound wasn't an explosion, but something deeper, like the ship itself had flinched. Alarm screamed in alien tones I'd never heard before, low and guttural, as if the steel around us was trying to warn us in its own language. Varick didn't hesitate. He slammed his fist against the command console, barking orders in clipped ancient code. The soldiers around him moved like a machine. No panic, no wasted motion. They had done this dance before too many times. Heron stumbled, clutching a railing. What's happening? Varick turned, his face carved from iron. They've arrived. The words dropped like stone in my gut. I looked at the projections now, flickering across the walls, out beyond the orbit of New Carthage. Something shifted in the void. At first it looked like distortions, smudges of light bending wrong, like oil spreading across black water. Then the shape solidified. Ships, but not ships. They moved without engines, sliding across the dark as though swimming. Their forms were jagged, shifting, sometimes solid, sometimes hollow, flickering between matter and shadow. Their very presence made my vision blur, my stomach twist. They weren't meant to exist in the world. I knew they were fractures in reality, scars given form. The Hollow, I whispered the word. Tasting bitter, dozens of them appeared. Then hundreds surrounding the orbit like vultures circling a corpse. The planetary fleet panicked, breaking formation, scattering like frightened prey. Already the comms filled with desperate voices. This is Patrol Alpha. We're losing sensors. they're inside out. Hull, what the hell is Mother of God? They're everywhere. Static. Silent, then only screams. Varick's men didn't flinch. They activated their weapon systems there. Hands dancing across controls patched. With alien tech, I saw cannons hum with sickly light plasma corridors roaring. Awake, Varick barked, form the line. Hold them from the planet. The chamber lit with battle maps. The hollow surged forward like a black tide, slamming into the first wave of human defenders. The planetary fleet, our fleet, fought back with every gun they had, but their weapons passed through half the enemy ships as though striking mist. The other half bled, not metal, not fire, but something thicker, darker, like shadow, liquefying into matter. And still the hollow advanced. I couldn't look away. These weren't battleships, they were predators. They latched onto human vessels like wolves, tearing into carcasses, their jagged forms piercing through armor as if it were paper. I saw one cruiser split in half without a single shot fired, its crew spilling into the void, their screams cut short. Varick's fleet moved next. The Legion didn't fight like us. Their ships flared with unholy light, firing weapons I had no names for, beams of twisted plasma carved through hollow forms, explosions ripping reality itself. I saw one Legion vessel ram head first into a hollow beast, tearing through its body, its own hull crumbling. In sacrifice, it was brutal, desperate, but effective. For the first time, the hollow slowed. Varick turned to us. Get your people off the ship. If you stay, you'll die in the crossfire. Heron spat. You can't order us around. We need information, data. Varick stepped forward, towering, his presence crushing. Fool, this is not a negotiation. This is war. If you want to live long enough to argue politics, leave now. Before Heron could answer, the ship lurched violently. The lights flickered. Alarms blared. Somewhere deep in the hull something howled, a sound that wasn't mechanical, it was alive. I grabbed Heron by the arm, shoving him toward the door. He's right, move. We stumbled back through the corridors. With our escorts guiding us, the ship shook around us, distant thunder of weapons shaking the air. At one point, we passed a viewport and I stopped cold. Outside, the hollow were everywhere. One of them slammed into a Legion vessel, piercing through its hull like a spear. For a moment, the two ships fused, writhing together like beasts in pain, until the Legion vessel detonated in a blinding flash, taking the hollow with it. The shockwave rattled our bones. Keep moving, a soldier barked, shoving us forward. We reached the hangar, sprinted to our shuttle. I looked back one last time as the hangar doors sealed. The Legion soldiers stood firm, eyes blazing with grim determination. They weren't fighting for glory. They were fighting because there was no other choice. The shuttle launched into chaos. The sky above New Carthage was fire. The hollow swarmed like locusts, tearing ships apart with merciless hunger. Civilians screamed through comms, their voices a chorus of fear flooding every channel. I saw the planetary defense grid open fire, giant cannons lighting up the night. Some hollow burned, most didn't. As we descended, Heron gripped his seat, pale and trembling. They'll destroy everything, everything. I said nothing. My throat was dry, my mind replaying Varick's words. The hollow will not bargain. They will not wait for your votes. He was right. Our leaders weren't ready. Our weapons weren't enough. We weren't enough. The shuttle landed hard on the Senate platform. Chaos erupted instantly. Senators, officers, civilians, all. Screaming, demanding answers. Harren tried to speak, his voice cracking. They're real, the Legion was right. We're under attack, but even as he shouted, I knew they wouldn't listen. The Senate chamber was already divided, half demanding immediate alliance with the Legion, half insisting the fleet was infected, corrupted, dangerous. Some even claimed the Hollow had brought them here. Arguments exploded into fists. Guards dragged people out. I slipped away, my chest heavy with dread. Out the windows, I saw the night sky lit with fire. The Legion fought with everything they had, their scarred ships, carving through the Hollow like burning blades, but they were outnumbered. For every hollow that fell, 2 more emerged from the void. And then the worst happened. The shields around New Carthage flickered once, twice, then failed. The Hollow descended on the city. I'll never forget the sight. Shadows fell like rain, striking towers and streets, dissolving matter with every touch. Buildings crumbled, people screamed, running as the ground itself wore under them. The Hollow weren't content with ships, they wanted flesh, cities, life. The Legion dove to intercept, but too many had already breached the atmosphere. I ran into the streets, the air choked with ash and smoke. Panic surged around me, people trampling each other in desperation. Overhead, a hollow shape slammed into a tower, tearing it apart. In a roar of fire and glass, a child screamed nearby, pinned under debris. Instinct took over. I pulled him free, dragging him through the chaos as his mother cried out in relief. For a moment humanity flickered, a mother clutching her son, a stranger lending his hands. Then the sky split again. The Hollow came like a tide, and in that moment, as fire consumed the streets, I understood what Varric meant. This wasn't about politics. This wasn't about trust. This was about survival, and survival demanded sacrifice. I knew then, standing amid the fire and screams, that humanity's only chance lay not with the Senate, not with our fleets, not with our weapons. It lay with the Legion, the scarred, broken men who had crawled back from the abyss, but to follow them meant becoming like them, corrupted, twisted, changed. The question wasn't whether humanity could fight, it was whether humanity was willing to pay the price of winning. As the Hollow descended, as the city burned, I realized the answer would come. Not in words, but in blood. The streets of New Carthage burned. What once was a city of glittering towers and neon skies had become a graveyard of fire and shadow. The Hollow tore through everything they touched. Stone crumbled, glass melted, metal twisted like wet clay. People ran, screaming, their voices rising in a chorus of panic that drowned out the thunder of collapsing buildings. I stumbled through the chaos, ears ringing, smoke clawing at my lungs. The ground quacked as another tower split in half, raining fire down onto the streets. Everywhere I looked, the Hollow were hunting. They didn't move like machines or soldiers. They glided, shifting forms, sliding through walls, tearing apart anything that breathed. They weren't conquering, they were feeding, and humanity was helpless. Civil defense units fired wildly, their weapons cutting through shadows that reformed instantly. Civilians grabbed old rifles, pistols, anything that could spit fire, but none of it mattered. Every bullet passed through smoke and screams. Every grenade killed more people than monsters. The Hollow weren't meant for our world, and our world wasn't built to stop them. I kept moving, my body running on fear alone. I turned a corner and nearly froze. Hollow was there, towering its form, shifting between jagged black steel and dripping shadow. It saw me or felt me. Its shape lunged, twisting forward. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. My hand went for my sidearm, but I knew it wouldn't matter, and then the sky split open. A Legion dropship screamed overhead, engines burning with a sickly blue flame. It roared down into the street, slamming onto the pavement with a shockwave that knocked me off my feet. The ramp dropped and soldiers poured out. Not the polished soldiers of the Senate Guard. These were monsters in human skin. Their armor was ancient, scarred, covered in strange grafts that pulsed faintly with alien light. Their weapons were jagged, fused from human steel and something darker. They didn't hesitate. They didn't shout orders. They just opened fire. The street lit with unholy fury. Beams of twisted plasma lanced into the hollow, burning holes straight through its form. The monster howled, the sound scraping against my bones, but it fell. The Legion moved on instantly, cutting down shadow after shadow with weapons that didn't miss. I lay there on the pavement, staring up at them. They weren't men anymore, not fully. Their movements were too sharp, too precise, their eyes too cold. But they were killing the hollow, and right now that was all that mattered. One of them turned toward me. His face was pale beneath his helmet, his features hard and gaunt. He stared at me for a long moment, then tossed something at my chest. A weapon. It was heavy, jagged, glowing faintly with sickly blue light. It hummed in my hands, alive in a way no rifle should be. Point and fire, he said, his voice raw as if every word scraped his throat. Then he turned back to the fight. I gripped the weapon tight, my heart hammering. The hollow surged again, sliding down the street like a living tide. The Legion tore into them, weapons screaming, but there were too many. Instinct screamed at me to run, but my hands didn't listen. I raised the weapon, pulled the trigger. The recoil was a kick of thunder, but the beam that shot out wasn't like anything I'd ever seen. It ripped into hollow, burning straight through its shifting body. For the first time in my life, I saw one of those monsters collapse at my feet. The Legion soldier glanced back at me just for a second. His lips twitched, not a smile, not approval, but something closer to recognition. Then he turned back, firing again. For the first time, I wasn't just prey. We pushed through the streets, Legion carving a path with inhuman efficiency. I followed, weapon in hand, half in shock, half in terror. Everywhere we went, civilians stared, their faces twisted with equal parts awe and fear. Some cried out thanks. Others screamed that the Legion were monsters themselves. None of it slowed them down. The hollow kept coming out of alleys, through walls, falling from the skies like black rain. The Legion didn't falter. Every time one of their own fell, they didn't scream, didn't hesitate. They just stepped over the body and kept fighting. We reached a plaza where hundreds of civilians had gathered, trapped, nowhere to run. Hollow closed in, circling like wolves. Panic rippled through the crowd. Children screaming, parents clutching them, men and women praying to gods that never answered. The Legion charged straight into the swarm. It wasn't a battle, it was slaughter. Weapons cut the hollow to pieces, their shadows shrieking as they dissolved into black smoke. The plaza filled with the stench of burning air and the sound of unearthly death. For a moment I believed we might actually hold Then the ground split, a hollow larger than anything I'd seen before erupted. From beneath the plaza, its body towered. Over the square, a mountain of shifting shadow and jagged bone, its form twisted into dozens of shapes at once, blades, wings, claws, each dripping with black light. The civilians screamed. The Legion didn't move, they fired. Everything they had, beams of plasma, tore into the beast, burning massive holes through its body, but it didn't stop. It shrieked, a sound that shattered glass and split eardrums. People dropped to their knees, blood pouring from their ears. The monster struck, its claws slammed into the plaza, tearing half a building to rubble. Dozens of civilians vanished in a flash of shadow. Legion soldiers were thrown like ragdolls, armor cracking, bones shattering. I froze, weapons shaking. My hands, the beast turned its head, its eyes, if you could call them that, burning with void fire. It saw me, and then Varric arrived. His dropship crashed down into the plaza, its hull already scarred with battle. He marched out with his command squad, his presence like a storm made flesh. His weapon wasn't a rifle, but a blade, forged from metal that pulsed with unholy light. He pointed it at the beast, his voice cutting through the chaos. Fall. The Legion surged forward. Varric charged straight into the monster, his blade carving through shadow and bone. With every swing, the beast screamed, its form unraveling, but it fought back, claws slashing, wings tearing through buildings. The battle shook the city. Every strike was thunder, every wound an earthquake. Civilians ran, some falling to their knees in prayer, others in terror. And me, I stood frozen, weapon in hand, watching a man who had been dead for 2 centuries fight a god of shadows with nothing but rage and steel. The fight seemed endless. For every wound Vic carved, the hollow reformed. For every soldier that fired, another fell. But the Legion didn't stop. They couldn't stop. Finally, Varric drove his blade deep into the beast's core. The weapon pulsed, light flaring brighter, brighter, until the monster exploded in a blast of black fire. The shock wave ripped through the plaza, hurling me into the ground. When the smoke cleared, the beast was gone. Only ash remained. Varric stood in the center of the plaza, his armor cracked, blood on his face, but his eyes burning. The civilians stared at him in silence. Some whispered prayers, others curses, but all of them looked at him not as a man, but as something more and something less. He raised his voice, echoing through the ruins. This is only the beginning. If you wish to live, stand, fight, or die. Screaming. His words weren't comforting. They weren't meant to be. They were truth, sharp and merciless. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. The city stank of ash and blood. Hours had passed since the monster fell in the plaza, but the fires still raged. Entire districts lay in ruins, towers gutted, and streets buried beneath rubble. The hollow had retreated, not destroyed, but scattered, slipping back into the void, like shadows returning to their den. For now, New Carthage was quiet, but it was the quiet of a corpse. After the heartbeat has stopped, I walked through the wreckage, my boots crunching on shattered glass. The weapon the Legion soldier had given me still hummed faintly in my hands. Alive, unwilling to rest. Around me, civilians picked through ruins for the living, screaming for lost families. Every sound was grief, and everywhere I went, the name Varric spread. Some whispered it with reverence, savior, legend, warrior. Returned, others spat it with venom. Monster, abomination, corruption made. Flesh, children cried when legion. Soldiers passed, hiding in their mother's arms. Others stared with wide eyes, their fear mixing with awe. No one knew whether the legion had saved us or cursed us. I wasn't sure myself. When I finally reached the Senate Tower, the once proud building looked no better than the streets, windows shattered, walls scorched, the great chamber filled, not with order but with chaos. Senators shouted over one another, some red with fury, others pale with fear. Guards stood tense, rifles in hand, unsure if they were meant to aim at Hollow or politicians. I slipped into the chamber with Heron, who had somehow survived, and found me in the streets. He looked worse for wear, his pristine robes torn, his hair soaked in sweat. He wasted no time throwing himself into the storm of voices. They can't be trusted, Heron shouted above the noise. You saw them. Corrupted, changed. The Legion has brought the Hollow here, don't you see? They're infected with the same disease. We're inviting poison into our veins. Another senator, a woman with ash still smeared across her face, slammed her fist on the table. Without them, we would all be dead. The Legion saved this city. They fought when our fleets collapsed like paper. They're monsters, Heron shot back. They're survivors, she answered. And right now I care more for survivors than politicians. The chamber erupted again, voices clashing like swords. Some demanded alliance, others demanded execution. Fear and pride made for dangerous allies, and both were here in abundance. I stood silent, watching my mind replaying the sight of Varric driving his blade into the hollow beast. The way the Legion fought with no hesitation, no mercy, the way their weapons had felt alive in my hands, as if whispering that survival came with a price. They weren't human anymore, I knew that, but neither were the Hollow. And if we wanted to survive, maybe becoming less human was the only way. The argument dragged until the chamber doors slammed open, a hush fell. Varric entered. He strode in as if the Senate chamber belonged to him, his presence filling the room like thunder. His armor was still cracked from the battle, dried blood smeared across his cheek, but his eyes burned as sharp as blades. Behind him came a handful of Legion soldiers, their armor glowing faintly. The dim light, for the first time I saw senators fall silent without being ordered to. Fear had done what reason could not. Varric walked to the center of the chamber, planted his blade into the floor and spoke. You argue while your people die. His voice wasn't raised, but it cut through the silence like steel. The Hollow are not finished. That was a skirmish, a taste. They are massing beyond the system even now. When they return, it will not be one city they destroy, but your entire world. One senator dared to speak. And we should simply hand power to you. You return from the dark, corrupted, infected, demanding we follow you blindly. We don't even know what you've become. Varric's gaze fixed on him, cold and merciless. We became what was necessary. While you sat in towers and argued, we bled in shadows, we buried worlds. We became less than human so humanity could have a chance to remain at all. He leaned forward, voice lowering, almost a growl. Do not mistake sacrifice for corruption. The chamber was silent. Every senator avoided his eyes. Then Heron stepped forward, trembling with fury. You expect us to believe you to kneel. You're not a savior, you're a threat. You've dragged The hollow here, you'll drag more. You're the disease, Vic. Varric didn't move, he didn't need to. His silence was heavier than any blade. Finally, he turned his head slightly, speaking to the entire chamber. You can hate me, you can fear me, it does not matter. What matters is this. When the hollow return, and they will, you will not survive without us. You cannot, your fleets will break, your weapons will fail, your people will burn, and when that day comes, you will either fight beside us or you will be ash. He pulled his blade from the floor, turned and walked out without waiting for permission or response. His soldiers followed, their eyes like shadows in the dim chamber. The silence they left behind was worse than they. Chaos. The Senate erupted again the moment the doors closed, but this time the voices were quieter, heavier, poisoned with doubt. Some demanded immediate surrender to Legion command. Others shrieked for Varric's arrest, even execution. But all of them knew the truth. Every defense fleet we had was shattered. The Legion was the only wall left standing. I walked out before the shouting could drown me. The city's smoke was still rising into the night, carrying the stench of the dead. Everywhere I looked, I saw faces, hollowed by fear, eyes searching the sky for monsters, and I saw the Legion among them, patrolling streets, guarding survivors, carrying children out of ruins. Their presence was a knife in the heart of the city. People stared with awe and terror, unsure whether to bow or spit, and the Legion didn't care. They moved like men with no past, no future, only war. I stopped when I saw one of them kneeling beside a ruined street, pulling debris away with bare hands. A little girl lay beneath, her legs twisted, blood on her face. The soldier lifted her gently, his massive hands almost delicate, his helmet tilted as if he didn't know what to do with her. The girl stirred, looked up at him, and whispered a single word. Monster. The soldier froze. He didn't flinch, didn't speak, just carried her to a medic, placed her down, and walked away. Without a word, I stood there, unable to move, because she was right and she was wrong. They were monsters, but monsters who bled for us. That night I couldn't sleep. The weapon lay beside my bed, its glow faint like a heartbeat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hollow tearing through the city, the Legion fighting with rage and silence, Varric's blade splitting the beast apart. I hated him for being right. The next morning, the Senate broadcast went live across the planet, their decision, their decree. I stood in the plaza, surrounded by ash and rubble as the hologram flickered above us. Harren's face appeared pale but proud. People of New Carthage, he declared, we stand united. The hollow are real, the threat undeniable. But so too is the danger of the Legion. We cannot submit to monsters who have abandoned their humanity. We will rebuild our fleets, we will strengthen our walls, and we will stand as humans, pure, uncorrupted, against whatever comes. The crowd cheered, not all but enough. Their cheers rang hollow to me because I'd seen the truth. We weren't pure, we weren't strong, we were broken, and if we fought the hollow alone, we would be nothing but ashes in the dark. When the broadcast ended, I turned my eyes to the sky. The Legion's fleet still hung there, silent, scarred, waiting for us to decide what price we were willing to pay for survival. And I knew with a clarity that chilled me that when the hollow returned, the Senate's words would mean nothing. Only the Legion would matter, only Varric. The days after the battle blurred together in smoke and silence. New Carthage limped on, but barely. Fires burned for a week before the flames finally surrendered to ash. The dead filled the morgues, then the streets, then the mass graves dug into the bones of the city. Every corner carried whispers of ghosts the hollow had left, but their shadow lingered over everything. The Senate broadcasted endlessly, promising order, promising strength. They declared curfews, raised new militias, rebuilt defense platforms. Their words were polished, defiant, but the people didn't believe them anymore. Not really. When they looked to the sky, they didn't see the Senate, they saw the fleet, the Legion, and though they feared it, they also prayed it wouldn't leave. I tried to live like before, to pretend I was just a soldier doing my duty, but the weapon still hummed beside my bed, whispering in the dark. The Legion's presence clung to me like smoke. I couldn't shake the memory of that soldier's silent eyes or Varric's voice echoing in the Senate chamber. One night I made my choice. The city was asleep under its curfew when I left. I told no one, not even my commanding officer. I walked through the ruined streets toward the old spaceport where the Legion had claimed their ground base. People warned me not to go there. Some said no one who entered came back the same. Others said they didn't come back at all. Maybe that was true. The gates loomed tall, guarded by Legion soldiers. Their armor glowed faintly, their faces hidden behind cracked visors. They didn't speak when I approached, only stared with eyes that burned faintly in the dark. For a moment I thought they would cut me down. Instead, one of them spoke. His voice was dry, like stone grinding on stone. "Why are you here?" I swallowed hard. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. "I want to fight, not as a soldier of the Senate, as one of you." Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then, without another word, the soldier turned and opened the gate. I stepped inside. The base was nothing like ours. No polished barracks, no neat rows of equipment. It was a graveyard of steel and fire. The walls pulsed faintly, alive with veins of alien metal. Weapons hummed on racks like caged beasts. A riot of oil and something sharper, metallic, almost like blood. And in the center, Varric waited. He sat at a table, surrounded by maps etched into glowing steel. When his eyes lifted to me, I felt the weight of centuries crush my chest. "You've come," he said simply. I nodded. "I want to fight like you do." His gaze lingered, sharp and merciless. "Do you understand what that means? The Senate calls us monsters. They are not wrong. We are not men anymore. We surrendered that long ago to fight as we do. You must let go of what you are. You will bleed, and what bleeds from you will not be human." "I don't care," I said, though my voice cracked. I saw the hollow. I saw what they do. If becoming less than human is the only way to stop them, then I'll pay the price. Varric studied me in silence. Finally he stood, his towering presence filling the room. "Then follow." He led me through the base, past soldiers whose eyes glowed faintly with unnatural fire, past chambers. Screams echoed behind sealed doors. We descended into the bowels of the fortress, into a chamber that stank of smoke and iron. It was there I saw it. The Crucible. A machine, if you could call it that. Towering structure of steel and bone. Its veins pulsing with liquid light. Air around it vibrated thick and heavy, as if the void itself leaked through. "This," Varric said, his voice low, "is what kept us alive in the dark. The crucible breaks you, strips you, burns away the man until only the weapon remains. Some survive, most do not. My throat tightened, but I nodded. Varric's eyes narrowed. Once you step inside, there is no turning back. Your name, your flesh, your soul, they belong to the Legion. Do you understand? Yes. He studied me one last time, then turned to his soldiers. Prepare him. They stripped me of my uniform, my insignia, my rank. Everything I had been, they left me standing bare before the crucible, shivering not from cold, but from the weight of what I was about to do. Then the machine opened. They forced me inside, the chamber sealed around me, darkness swallowing everything. For a moment I thought I had died. Then the pain began. It wasn't fire. Fire would have been mercy. This was something deeper, something that burned not just flesh but memory, bone, soul. I felt my blood boil, my veins tearing, my skin splitting. I screamed, but the machine swallowed the sound, and then the voices came, whispers in the dark, a chorus of shadows clawing at my mind. They weren't words I understood, but I felt their meaning. Surrender, become, survive. Images flashed before my eyes, planets burning, fleets torn apart, men screaming as their bodies split into shadow and steel. I fought it, I clung to my name, my past, my humanity. But the crucible didn't care. It tore it all away piece by piece until I was nothing but pain and void. And then it stopped. I gasped, collapsing to my knees. Chamber opened, spilling me onto the cold floor. My body trembled, smoke rising from my skin. I looked at my hands. They weren't the same. My veins glowed faintly with blue light, my skin etched with scars that pulsed as though alive. I felt stronger, faster, but also empty. Varric stood over me, his eyes hard. You lived, few do. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked into something raw, deeper, almost alien. What am I now? His lips twitched, almost a smile. Legion. The soldiers around us saluted, fists to their chests. For the first time they looked at me not as an outsider, not as prey, but as one of their own. But inside I felt something colder. A piece of me was gone, burned away in the crucible. My memories still lingered, my childhood, my family, my past, but they felt distant, like shadows on the edge of a dying fire. That night I lay in a bunk within the Legion barracks, the weapon resting beside me. It no longer hummed, it pulsed in rhythm with my own heart. I closed my eyes, but sleep never came, only the whispers faint now, echoing from the crucible. Surrender, become, survive. And though wanted to deny it, a part of me already knew I wasn't the same man who had walked into that fortress. I wasn't a man at all. I was Legion, the Hollow. Didn't wait long to return. 2 weeks after the crucible stripped me bare and remade me, the alarms came again. Not the Senate's polished warnings, not the shrill wails of civilian towers. These were Legion alarms, low, heavy, primal. They didn't just warn you of danger, they told you death had already arrived. I stood in the barracks when it began, my weapon across my lap, its pulse matching my heart. The other soldiers rose instantly, their movements sharp, efficient, no hesitation, no words, just action. I did the same. My body moved differently now, faster, stronger, every nerve sharpened into steel. Varric's voice thundered through the comms. The Hollow descend, they come in force. Legion, hold the line, show them We do not break, the hangar erupted in motion, dropship screamed to life. Weapons roared awake, I boarded with my squad, the air thick with silence, not fear, we had burned that away long ago. But a grim hunger, the kind only survivors carried, the dropship tore into the sky, engines shrieking as we climbed into the chaos, and chaos it was. The hollow poured through the void like a tide of nightmares. Their forms twisted and bled into reality, blotting out the stars. Legion ships burned bright against the dark, scarred hulks tearing into the swarm with weapons that split the void itself. Human fleets patched desperate fought alongside them, their firepower a fraction of what was needed, but their courage undeniable. From above, New Carthage burned again. Towers cracked and fell as the hollow descended in rivers of shadow, pouring into the city like veins of rot. Our dropship jolted, hit by something unseen. The pilot snarled, forcing it down, weaving between burning skyscrapers. When the ramp dropped, heat and smoke swallowed us whole. We charged into hell. The streets were already gone. Shadows writhed over the pavement, crawling like living oil, devouring everything they touched. Civilians ran, their screams drowned out by the shrieks of hollow beasts ripping through walls and flesh alike. Our squad didn't slow. The first wave of hollow rushed us, jagged forms sliding across the ground. My weapon flared alive in my hands, its light burning hotter than my fear. I fired. The beam ripped a hollow apart, its body exploding into black smoke. Another lunged, claws snapping. I swung my weapon like a blade, the energy core shrieking as it split the thing in half. And for the first time I felt it, what the Legion had become. The hollow screams didn't make me flinch. Their twisted forms didn't make me hesitate. I moved with them, through them, my body fluid, my mind cold. It wasn't just training, it wasn't just courage, it was the crucible whispering in my blood. Surrender. Become, survive. We carved through the first wave, our weapons shrieking, our bodies moving like shadows with purpose. The hollow fell, but they didn't stop. They never stopped. A scream tore through the comms. A human militia line collapsed 3 blocks away, their weapons useless against the tide. Without orders, our squad moved. We found them in the ruins of a tower, a handful of young soldiers firing wildly as hollow poured in around them. Their eyes went wide when they saw us. Relief, then fear. Legion, one of them cried. They sent the damned Legion. We didn't answer. We didn't need to. We cut through the swarm, weapons carving, shadows burning. The hollow screamed as their forms unraveled, dissolving into nothing. The militia soldiers stared, their rifles slack in their hands. One of them, barely more than a boy, whispered, "They fight like monsters." Another answered, voice trembling, "Monsters who fight for us. We didn't stay." The battle raged too hot, too close. We pushed deeper into the city, the hollow thickening with every block. And then we heard it, the roar. It wasn't like the beast from the plaza. This was different, deeper, older. Sound that made the buildings tremble, the ground quake. My blood chilled even as the crucible whispered for war. We turned a corner and I saw it, the hollow titan. It towered above the city, a mountain of shifting shadow and jagged bone. Wings of black fire spread across the sky, blotting out the stars. Its body pulsed with lightless veins, each beat shaking the ground where it walked. Streets cracked and melted where it Looked, men died screaming, the human. Fleets fired from above, their weapons tearing holes through its form. The Legion answered with everything they had, burning it with twisted plasma. But the Titan didn't fall, it devoured the fire, its form splitting and reforming. With every strike, Varric's voice cut through the comms, sharp as a blade. Titans do not fall to ships, they fall to blades. Legion strike teams to the core. My squad moved without hesitation. We charged into the ruins, climbing the wreckage as the Titan tore the city apart. Every step was death, hollow. Beasts swarmed us, shadows clawing from every corner. My weapon screamed in my hands, my body burning with the crucible's fire. I killed and killed and killed, but the Titan loomed closer and closer still. By the time we reached its base, the city was gone, entire districts flattened beneath its weight. Human soldiers scattered like insects, their weapons useless against its hide. Our commander barked through the comms. Find the core, it hides beneath the heart. Strike deep, strike true. We scaled its body, clinging to jagged spines of black bone. The heat burned my hands, the shadows clawed at my flesh. But I climbed higher, higher, until the city was nothing but ash below. The Titan roared, shaking us loose. 2 of my squad fell, their bodies swallowed by shadows. Their screams didn't last. I climbed faster. At last I reached it. The core, a heart of pulsing black light, buried deep in the Titan's chest. It throbbed with every beat, pouring shadows into the world. The crucible whispered in my blood, kill, kill, kill. I raised my weapon, its energy screaming in my hands. For a moment the hollows gaze turned to me, the void stared into my soul, endless and hungry, and I fired. The beam tore into the core, light clashing against shadow. The Titan shrieked, its roar splitting the sky. Its body convulsed, shadows unraveling, wings tearing apart. My weapon burned, the heat searing through my hands, but I didn't stop. Surrender, become, survive. I fired again and again. The core shattered, the Titan exploded in a storm of black fire. The shockwave ripped through the city, hurling me into the ruins below. I hit hard, bones cracking, visions swimming. For a moment I thought I was dead, then I opened my eyes. The Titan was gone. Only ash remained, scattering into the wind. The hollows roar faded, replaced by silence. For the first time that night the shadows stopped moving. We had won, but not without cost. The city was rubble, the fleets broken, the streets littered with the dead. Half my squad was gone, the militia scattered, their faces hollow. And me, I lay among the ash, my body trembling, my hands still glowing with the crucible's fire. I wasn't the same man who had walked into this war. I wasn't a man at all. I was Legion, and for the first time I didn't know if that meant I had saved humanity or damned it. The Titan's corpse smoldered into ash, its black fire fading into the night sky. For a moment the city was quiet. Not safe, never safe, but quiet. The hollow withdrew, their shadow tide slowing, breaking apart, sliding back into the void like smoke retreating from flame. We had survived. Barely. The militia cheered, their ragged voices echoing through the ruins. Civilians crawled from the rubble, their cries mixing grief and relief. For the first time since the hollows returned, the people felt hope, but they, Legion, didn't cheer. We didn't raise our weapons, didn't shout in victory. We stood among the ruins, silent, our eyes on the skies. Because we knew what they didn't. This wasn't over. The Hollow didn't retreat. Out of fear, they retreated because they'd gotten what they wanted. I felt it in my veins, in the faint pulse of the crucible still whispering through my blood. The battle hadn't been a victory. It had been a test. The Hollow were learning, watching, measuring, and they would come again when the survivors rebuilt their barricades. I was summoned to the Senate Tower, or what remained of it. The building leaned like a crippled beast. Half its walls collapsed, but the politicians still clung to it as if stone could make them strong. The chamber was darker now, filled not with shouts but with fear. Heron stood at the center, his face pale, his voice trembling with fury. They did this, he screamed, pointing at me as though my very presence were poison. The Legion. Don't you see? Wherever they go, the Hollow follow. They've infected our world with their corruption. The senators muttered, their eyes darting between me and the shadows. Some nodded in fear, others looked away. I said nothing. What words could I give them? My veins still glowed faintly with the crucible's mark. My hand still hummed with the weapon that no human forge had ever built. Then the chamber doors opened and Varric entered. The room froze. His armor was cracked, his blade still stained with hollow ash. His eyes burned sharper than fire, colder than steel. He didn't ask permission. He walked to the center of the chamber, planted his blade in the floor, and spoke. You are all already dead, he said. Chamber erupted in outrage. Heron shouted curses. Senators slammed their fists. Voices rose in fury, but Varric's words drowned them all. The Hollow will return, stronger, smarter. They will not stop until this world is ash. Your fleets cannot save you. Your walls cannot save you. Only the Legion can. But not as we are, not as you are. He looked at me, man, his eyes piercing through my chest. You felt it, the crucible's truth. Humanity cannot win this war as men. To survive, we must become more. All of us, every soldier, every citizen, every child. The Hollow cannot be destroyed by purity, only by transformation, by sacrifice. The chamber went silent. His words hung like a noose around every neck. Heron broke first. You want to turn us all into monsters. Varric's voice was calm, merciless, into survivors. The Senate erupted again, voices clashing, some screaming in agreement, others in terror. I stood frozen, my heart hammering, because I understood what he meant. The crucible, he wasn't offering it to just soldiers. He wanted to open it to the world, to burn away humanity, until nothing was left but Legion. I left the chamber before the shouting could drown me. The streets outside were worse than before. Children clung to their parents. Men dug through rubble for the dead. Women cried into bloodied hands, and all of them looked at the sky, where the Legion's fleet still hung like vultures over a corpse. Some prayed to them, others cursed them, and I didn't know what to believe anymore. That night I found Varric on the walls of the fortress, staring at the stars. His blade rested against the stone beside him, its faint light pulsing like a heartbeat. You don't believe me, he said without turning. I swallowed hard. I don't know what I believe. He finally looked at me. His eyes were tired, older than any man's had a right to be. You think I want this, to strip humanity bare, to tear children from their mothers and throw them into the fire? I don't, but I saw the dark. I saw what waits there. The Hollow do not conquer. They consume, and if humanity remains as It is soft, fragile, clinging to purity. We will vanish, just another race swallowed by the void. Maybe we're not meant to survive, I said. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. Maybe being human is worth more than just breathing another day. Varric's gaze hardened, spoken like a man who has not buried 1,000 worlds. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. You've already walked the crucible. You felt its whispers. Tell me when you killed the Titan, when your weapon split its heart, did you feel weak or did you feel alive? I froze because I remembered the roar of the weapon, the scream of the hollow, the fire in my veins, and yes, I had felt alive, too alive. Varric's lips twitched, almost a smile. You already know the truth. You are Legion now, and soon so must they all be, or none of us will remain. Before I could answer, the alarm sounded again. The hollow had returned. This time there was no swarm, no scattered assault. This time the sky itself split open. The stars bled. Rift tore above New Carthage, wide and endless, spilling black fire into the void. From it came shapes too vast to name, hollow forms larger than cities, their wings blotting out the heavens. The air itself bent under their presence, reality tearing like old cloth. The world screamed. The Legion rose instantly, ships roaring into the sky, weapons blazing. The fleets joined them, desperate, terrified. But even as the first shots rang out, we all knew this wasn't a battle. This was the end. The streets erupted in panic. Civilians fled. Militia fired blindly. Buildings collapsed under the weight of shadows. Varric turned to me, his eyes burning. The time has come, decide. He thrust his blade into my hands. The weapon pulsed, its light merging with the glow in my veins. My blood burned, my heart raced. The crucible whispered louder than ever. Surrender, become, survive. I looked at the city, at the people screaming in the streets. I looked at the hollow tearing through the skies, their shadows spilling into every corner of the world, and I looked at Varric, man who had surrendered everything and gained nothing but survival. Was this what humanity was meant to become? Monsters fighting monsters until nothing remained, or was this the only way to live? The ground shook as the hollow descended. I raised the blade. I don't remember choosing. I only remember fighting. The city became fire. The world became shadow. Legion and hollow clashed in a storm that tore the sky apart. I killed and killed and killed, my weapon screaming with me, my veins burning with unholy light. Civilians fled into the crucible, screaming as it remade them. Some died, some rose. The city became a furnace, turning men into weapons. I don't know how long it lasted, hours, days, eternity, but when the fire finally faded, when the shadows finally broke, I stood among ruins. Hollow were gone, not destroyed, never destroyed, but gone for now. New Carthage was no more, only ash, and survivors remained, survivors, and the Legion. I looked at my reflection in the blade. My eyes glowed faintly, my veins pulsed with fire. I was no longer the man who had once doubted legends. I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't even human. I was Legion, and humanity was gone. All that remained was survival.